I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined now by Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas, former member of the House. Good morning, Governor. Good to have you on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hugh, it is great to be with you this morning. Hope you're well.
I am. I assume you're running for president. I don't know if you formally filed. Have you formally filed yet?
Oh, no, I have not. No final decisions made. Still a little bit early. Most important thing is the message that we get out of a common sense conservatism and new leadership for our future. So I'm going to be fighting that battle in the coming months, and we'll see what the final decision is.
So, Governor, when do you have to make a decision by to be actually competitive? I mean, you got to raise a lot of small dollar donors. The RNC is going to put people on the stage based on polling and number of donors, if my leaks out of the RNC are correct. Debate's supposed to start in July in Milwaukee. When will you have to make a decision whether or not you're going to go formally?
Well, I think you've got, the 3 or 4 months. Should be in the springtime. That gives you time to be ready. So that's the outside marker to me is sometime in the spring. We're doing all the things that are necessary in terms of I'm going to be in Iowa. I'm going to be in the key states. I'm going to be talking about what I believe in the future for our country, from border security to energy policy. And we see where that goes and makes a decision based upon the level of support and the final decision as to whether I can make a difference in the direction of our country.
Now, Governor, the Hugh's rules would be you've got to have won a statewide race before you get to be on the platform or be the former president. Let me start with a couple of substance. We do a lot of substance before we get to politics. What's your starting position on how Americans ought to feel about China right now?
Well, China is an adversary. China is a terrible relationship in terms of their aggressiveness, both with Taiwan, with Hong Kong, with the straits there in the international waters. It is we have to change our China-centric chain to move away from China. Whenever you look at our trade with China, it has been unfair. It hasn't been balanced. They don't follow the international rules, and we've got to be tougher in terms of China. There's probably more can be said there, but that's a pretty good starting point.
Let me give you a specific. If they start moving an invasion force across the Taiwan Strait, should the U.S. Navy sink those ships?
Well, whenever you look at the potential of an invasion in Taiwan, first of all, you've got to make sure that Taiwan is equipped. I think that I'm not going to make the call on that until I get the counsel of the military and we look at our plan. First of all, there should be a plan as to deal with that scenario. It has to be developed in advance. We have to know what the action points are, and we want to be able to stand with Taiwan.
Well, if you run and if you win, the president-elect will have to tell the Pentagon whether or not you're willing to go right up to the point of sinking Chinese ships. Now, it's okay not to have an answer, obviously, but before the November election, shouldn't our candidate make their Taiwan position known before the election, the primaries begin?
I think that's fair in a certain standpoint, but at the same time, you don't want to tell China exactly the game plan, and they need to understand that we're going to be with Taiwan, that we're going to stand with them just as strong as we're standing with Ukraine, if not stronger. And they need to understand that there's a line that can be crossed. Now, as to all the consequences of it, I don't think whether you're a candidate or, as president, let's don't tell the whole war plan to China. So there's some things that need to be unsaid, but the position basically needs to be understood that it's not acceptable for China to take that kind of aggressive action against Taiwan.
Have you been to Taiwan, Governor Hutchinson?
Oh, yes, I've been to Taiwan a couple of times, been to China a number of times, so I've traveled in that area. And, of course, Taiwan, just such a great ally of the United States, democratic nation, and we've had a two-China policy forever, that we have had some ambiguity in that relationship, and I think one thing that has to be done is to whether we need to clarify the ambiguity and whether that is the right course for the future that we've had in the last couple decades.
Now, Governor, I don't know if you got around to it. A lot of Republican governors have banned TikTok from their state government agencies and employees. Did you do that? Do you wish you had if you didn't have time?
No, I did it. And first of all, I've actually will be governor until next week when.
I thought Sarah was already in. You're still governor. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. It's close. But yes, is probably a month ago that I issued an order directive making sure that TikTok is banned from our state platforms. It's just an example of the risk is too great when China, as a communist nation, has so much control over their businesses. And so, yes, I did that.
So you can still appoint people. You're still governor.
Well, I can if there's a death or resignation, but as a practical matter.
Well, I mean, you probably could just appoint me commissioner of the Arkansas River and ambassador to Ohio right now if you'd like to. I got Tim Pawlenty to make me commissioner of hockey in Minnesota. So I'm just saying, Governor, I'll wait for the call this week. Let's get back to stuff. I asked every candidate a lot during the 2016 cycle about our nuclear triad because it's old. It's very old. What is most important in your view when it comes to funding the triad? Which one gets the most, the first?
Well, when you're looking at the triad, you're looking at our submarine capacity, our land-based, our air capabilities in defense. And, the principle is that we have to have all capabilities. It's sort of like energy policy. You need to make sure that we have multiple capabilities so that if one is not effective, then you have others that you can turn to. And so you want to make sure that is capable. Obviously, our submarine capacity is movable. It is more difficult to target, and so that obviously is very critical as well as the air. But historically, the triad has been important, but those are two that I think are critically important to strengthen.
So you would, if you have a limited amount of money, you would fund the Columbia class first, the B-21 second, and then get around to upgrading the missiles?
Listen, I'm going to appoint you Navy Secretary, it sounds like.
No, look, I just asked the questions that most of the military guys, I'm a civilian governor. I don't know anything about this stuff. But the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force argue about this all the time. Brings me to my next question, which is, do we need to actually, it's basically a third right now, and it has been forever. Do you think it's time to move money out of a big Army and into Navy, Marine Corps, Air, and Space?
Well, I mean, I'm a Navy guy. My dad served in the Navy. My brother served in the Navy. I believe it is critically important. We have to build more ships. We have reduced the size of our Navy. That is not acceptable. And that's what gives us the strength globally. No other nation can match our capacity. Whenever you're looking at our Air Force, and whether it's the F-35 fighter jets that we hope to be training in Arkansas, or whether it is other capacities that we have in the air, those are the most significant early strength weapons that we have and fighting forces. Obviously, the Army, you can't diminish that. So I want to strengthen each of those, but you want to have a long-term military plan that gives us the most effective fighting force.
Yeah, I just think that this is going to be a big issue, as will be judges, where I go next. You've appointed judges for 8 years. If you run for president, will you do what Donald Trump did and put out a list of the people who you will take your first Supreme Court nominee from?
Well, that was a message. I mean, he had, 100 people on the list. And so
no, sure, it was like 40. It was a good long list, but it was 40 good, solid conservatives.
That's a possibility. It's the most important thing is that you convey what kind of judges that you want that actually understand the Constitution, strict constructionists, that are pro-life, that understand the importance of not legislating from the bench. Those are the things that are important to convey to the American people as to what kind of judges you want. As to whether we present a list, we'll wait and see, because I'm not a candidate yet, by the way. I am looking at this, and no final decision has been made.
Well, if you are, I'm going to come back to that, because I think it's vital that the Republicans take a page from that playbook. Governor, let me ask you about the debates. The RNC is going to meet later this month out here in California and decide the rules for those debates. And Ronna McDaniel told me they're going to probably start in Milwaukee. They're going to start in Milwaukee probably in July or August. I think that's too late, because we're missing opportunities to build audience and get small donors. I'm a Republican. What do you think?
Well, yeah, they ought to authorize debates that are earlier than that. Part of it will depend upon the number of candidates that are there. But July is late whenever you're looking at, Iowa coming up so quickly in January, February, New Hampshire quickly following that. And historically, you've had, the broadcast media willing to sponsor debates, and if the RNC prohibits that under certain conditions and tries to control that, that's challenging. Of course, we can have town hall meetings. There could be other ways in which you get your message out. But to me, July, we can live with that. I'm a candidate, but obviously earlier would be helpful, because you need to have a long ramp, particularly if you have a number of candidates there.
And I'm in Switzerland on whoever gets to be the nominee, but I don't want my friends in legacy media, and I've worked for all the networks. I know these people. They're fine people. They're all liberals. I mean, I really do think they're all liberals. I want Mary Catherine Hammond, Guy Benson. I want the folks at Fox like Brett. I want me. I want my colleagues from Salem who are into politics to be on that stage asking those questions. I do not want legacy media doing that. What do you think, Governor?
It all depends upon the personality and their biases and their sense of fairness. I mean, there's some in, as you would call the legacy media, that are actually fair and give you a chance to answer the question. So it all depends upon which one. But
now, who are you going to nominate? Obviously, I'm not looking for an exhaustive list, but give me an example of a legacy media person that you think is fair to Republicans.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean. Brett Baer, you mentioned.
No, Brett's not legacy. Legacy is ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, not Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times. The bigs.
I couldn't give you a name.
Okay.
We got our preferences, and particularly in a Republican primary context.
Yeah.
I think somebody who understands the Republican base, the conservative principles, that's who needs to be probing the question. Otherwise, and I've been in those circumstances, you got somebody beating a dead horse on an issue that nobody cares about, but they're controlling the dialogue, and that's a concern.
And I think there's, for example, a discussion to be had on abortion, but I don't want to start framing it the way legacy media does. Are you against all abortions for the life of the mother? Obviously, there's a life of the mother exception that all of you are going to support. The question is going to be, would you be in favor of a federal statute? And if so, what week would you put it at? And I'll just ask you that now. Are you in favor of any federal legislation on abortion?
Well, historically, the pro-life movement has said, let's reverse Roe versus Wade and return it to the states. And that has been my view on it for 40 years. And, and Arkansas has, in fact, yesterday, Hugh, Arkansas was named for the third straight year as the most pro-life state in the nation. And that's because I've signed every pro-life bill that's come to my desk. And I don't want to have a looser standard. So a lot depends upon how that is approached. But historically, for 40 years, I've said that ought to be returned to the states, and that's where it is right now.
Let me talk to you about then school choice, because I've only got 10 more minutes with you, so I want to go through a couple more of these. Doug Ducey, who you know is a governor, signed the most aggressive school choice law into law this year. Every single Arizona student can grab that, I think it's $6,500, and do with it what they will. What do you think of that model? What do you think of school choice?
Oh, I'm in favor of it. You look at my family, I've had we've homeschooled one son. We have used private school. We use Christian school, Catholic school. We've used public school, and those are choices parents make based upon what is the best for the children. And so that's a model that I think is important. I applaud Governor Ducey. I love what he's done, and I think, we had a start in school choice here in Arkansas under my leadership. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I believe, is going to pursue, without any doubt, that will be part of her agenda for the future. So we're moving that direction, and I applaud what Governor Ducey has done. I hope we get to talk about President Biden and border security.
That's where I'm going next. I want to know if you want to build the wall. Now, the border is, for context, the border is 2,000 miles long. 1,000 miles of it is impassable. It's really the 1,000 miles that need the wall. What do you think about if not a wall, then a double layer of fence with a road between it that's high and wide?
Well, you expressed it just right. I mean, some is impassable. I've been there. You've got some geographic limitations, but you got some other issues. But we absolutely need to continue to build the wall in those areas that it makes sense. We need to strengthen that both through technology, but also through a physical structure. It's proven successful in some areas. We need to be able to continue that. Whenever Biden comes out with his proposal yesterday, it's very disappointing that he did not address the cartel issue that I've been talking about for 2 months. That we're not going to be successful on the border until we engage Mexico in partnership to go after the cartel. That is absolutely critical. Secondly, is much too limited. They focused on 4 countries yesterday in Biden's policies versus the broad breadth of the issues that we're facing along the border. I'm glad he's going to both Mexico and meeting with them and going to El Paso, but it just signifies that this is a bipartisan, harm on our country that in a bipartisan way people are recognizing. So
it's a crisis. Governor Youngkin in my state, I'm a Virginian, so I know what Youngkin's up to. They're now started one pill can kill. And I think that's a great line for kids to understand because one pill can kill you now because of the fentanyl deal. I am curious, though, and I'm not going to frame it like legacy media. They would bring up the dreamers. I'm just going to ask you what you would do with the 20 million people who are in the country without permission.
Well, and the answer is that we should not address comprehensive immigration reform, as you're speaking of, and addressing the status of those that are in the country until we secure the border and give the American public confidence that we're taking the right steps there. So we don't need to have a comprehensive immigration bill that goes to Congress. It needs to be a border security bill that goes to Congress that gives a replacement for Title 42, that gives more of our resources, that reforms our asylum program, and that addresses the cartel. We have to have a border security bill before we ever touch anything else.
What do you think about, I got time for 2 more substantive, and I do substantive. Keep coming back, Governor, because I love talking issues. What about aid to Ukraine? And so my audience supports it. I support it. Send them whatever they need to get the Russians out of their country and degrade the Russian military capability. What's Asa Hutchinson think?
Absolutely. I've been a consistent supporter of Ukraine. They're fighting for their freedom, their sovereignty, but it also has an impact throughout Europe, and it does degrade Russia. Absolutely. It's essential that Ukraine win, and we have to have a winning strategy, not just a defensive strategy there through Ukraine. And we make many of the armaments, the HIMARS that's been so successful there are made in Camden, Arkansas. So very proud of that contribution.
Now, Governor DeSantis gave an inaugural, and if you run, you'll be on the debate stage probably with him. He said, Florida is where woke goes to die. Cotton jokes with me that woke doesn't even try to go to Arkansas. I am curious what you think about public schools today in the indoctrination and the CRT. Is it a real problem, or is that a figment of the right's imagination?
Well, I think it's a problem in terms of the indoctrination that comes from certain public schools environments. And that's why we want to empower parents. That's why we want to make sure that they have a voice and there's transparency in that environment. I don't believe in Arkansas it is the extensive problem that it is in other states, because we've got conservative people on the school boards. We've got conservative parents that are in there making sure that what's being taught in the public schools is not undermining the values that they learn at home. That's why parents have to be engaged in it, but it's also why school choice is important. And so let's fight that battle. I believe in fighting the cultural battles. I've been doing that for 40 years. That's why we're the most pro-life state. But let's make sure we fight it consistent with conservative principles, which is utilizing parents. It's not always government power. It is local control. It is parents being engaged in our education system and giving them tools that they need.
Last question, and keep coming back, Governor. CDC, their credibility is in a shambles. Dr. Fauci is retired. Ron DeSantis is standing up a grand jury to look into what was true and not true. What do you think about what CDC did? What do you think about the vaccine? Whether or not, did you get it? Did you get the boosters? Let's start there. Did you get the vaccine?
Me personally?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I took the vaccine, and I advocated for it. I think it's a good therapeutic tool, but we also made sure that government's not mandating it. And I think it was an error for it to be required in the military with the state of that vaccine and the fact that it had not gained public acceptance yet.
And I got the boosters. I got every booster. Did you get every booster?
I got every, and I believe in it, and so it's helped. That's why we've advocated, been very clear about that. But you asked me about CDC, and it's a bureaucracy that failed us, and the confusion, and part of it came with the confusion with the White House. But yeah, it was a bureaucracy that failed us during that time. Hopefully they can get reorganized. There's some good people that serve there. I've got two of my former secretaries of health that are at CDC now, and I think they're trying to do a good job. But they're critical for us, absolutely, the CDC. And public health is a real challenge for us in the future. We could have another outbreak of a virus, and we're looking for a vaccine. So let's be prepared. CDC has a role to play, but boy, they were not the tool that we needed at the beginning of the pandemic.
Amen to that. Governor, what's your website where people can find out about you now? And by the way, if you want to send me Hugh at HughHewitt.com, my ambassadorship to Ohio, the Arkansas ambassadorship to the Buckeye State, we teach you something about football down there. But where do people find out more about Asa Hutchinson?
I think we need to make you an Arkansas traveler. Maybe that's the appointment that you need. But thank you for asking, and my education effort is through America Strong and Free. So if you go to americastrongandfree.com, you'll be able to follow us. And Hugh, I appreciate it. Boy, you need to be on that debate stage, either as a candidate or as a moderator.
Oh, not ever going to run for anything, but I do love to ask questions, Governor, and I like that you answered them. Thank you. America, what is the website, Governor? America Free and Strong?
America Strong and Free.
AmericaStrongandFree.com. Governor Asa Hutchinson, congratulations on 2 great terms running the Razorback State.